I cannot believe that it's already been a year since I arrived to Canada. I have to say, this was one of the most healing years of my life, especially after going through the pandemic and everything that 2020 to 2022 brought with them. That was not easy for me to endure at all. Those 3 years, 2020, 2021, and the beginning of 2022, like those 3 years were the toughest years that I've ever had in my life. And moving to Canada couldn't have come at a better time. But we're not going to talk about that today. We are going to talk about my experience here in Canada. And I'm going to address all the big topics that people are usually concerned about when thinking about immigrating to Canada. This is not going to be a video where I tell you to go for it or come to Canada, or I tell you don't stay away from it. This is not a clickbaity YouTube video where, the title is going to be why people are leaving Canada or why Canada is the best place in the world. This video is just my personal experience and you can take away from it what you want. The reason I'm doing it is because I get a lot of questions from my family and friends about my experience here in Canada. And I guess whenever somebody asks me next time, I'm gonna be like, just watch this video. So yeah, let's get the big one out of the way. Let's talk about the weather. Everyone warned me about the cold in Canada. Everyone was saying, you are gonna so hate the cold. It's freezing outside. It's so rough to get through. And to that I say, I lived in 50+ degree weather for most of my life. This was a very much needed vacation from that. I thought this past winter was actually okay. But every time I tell somebody who's lived here for a while that, and for reference, I live in Toronto, every time I tell somebody that this past winter wasn't so bad, they say, oh yeah, that was a mild winter. You haven't seen anything yet. This was one of the best winters we've ever had. And so maybe I just got lucky, but I guess we're gonna see what winter this year is gonna be like. I personally did not mind winter. I planned accordingly, like I was always checking the weather. I always made sure I had food at home. I am the kind of person who enjoys spending time on their own. I have absolutely no problem entertaining myself. I have a lot of hobbies, I have a lot of interests. So spending time alone is really not a big deal for me. So even on days when I'm snowed in and couldn't go out, I was having a pretty good time. I think if you have the right clothes and the right gear, you should be okay. Like if you're going out and you're feeling cold, it's probably because you're not dressed properly. And if I really want to think about it, the real bad winter starts in January after New Year's. October, November, December, pretty tolerable, and in fact, kind of lovely because you enjoy the atmosphere, with Thanksgiving and Halloween and Christmas. It's got its charm. It's not until New Year's Eve is over and there's nothing to kind of look forward to that you think, yeah, this is a little tough. But overall, it's not really bad. And the thing I love about Canadian weather is that you actually get to experience all 4 seasons. Summer here is great. This year has been humid and rainy, but it's still been great nonetheless. Fall is absolutely stunning. I took some incredible footage last year of the leaves changing colors, and wherever you go in Toronto, well, in Ontario, it's just stunning. Spring was a bit of a downer for me, only because I didn't expect spring to be that wet. Like it rained a lot in spring, but it was still nice. You wear a nice light jacket and you go out and it's beautiful everywhere. Everything is coming back to life after the winter. It's beautiful. I have no complaints about the weather here. Sure, there are rough days, but I'll take Canada's winter over Kuwait's 50+ weather any day. Okay, the second thing I want to address is expenses. Living in Toronto and Canada in general is not cheap. First of all, can we talk about rent? Rent is insane. If you are an average person, you are paying anywhere between 1/3 to a half of your income on rent. And it's usually for, an apartment the size of a shoebox. It's insane. That is one of my very few complaints about living in Toronto. It's just that rent is crazy and it's an expensive city to live in. I remember when I first got here last year, groceries were expensive, but they were manageable. Now I'm buying the exact same things that I did last year, but I'm paying at least 20 or 30% more than I was paying last year. The least amount of money I'm spending every time I go into a grocery store, like to, buy groceries for the week, is $130. And I'm just one person. I don't have a family to feed, so yeah. The next thing that is super expensive is eating out. And eating out is justifiably expensive, I guess, because you have to pay for rent, which is super expensive. You have to pay salaries. You have to pay for the material that you're using at your restaurant. So as a restaurant owner and business owner, I understand why prices have to be hiked up. So I have really limited eating out because I don't want to pay astronomical figures just to have a bite to eat. Like even ordering in is insane. Like I rarely ever order from Uber Eats because the prices are hiked up on the apps and you have to pay for the delivery and you are encouraged to pay a tip to the driver, which again, the driver deserves because their job is not easy. But I just personally, weighing my options, I think I'd much rather spend that money on grocery and cooking my own food than ordering in and eating out. One of the things I love about living in Toronto is that there is something to do every single day of the week. I'm never bored here. There are so many things you can do, from concerts, live shows, sports, parks, stand-up comedy, eating out, nightlife, whatever you want, you can find it. Even if you want to go to a library, the National Library is beautiful. There's so much to do in the city. There's so much beautiful nature around that all you need to do is just maybe pack a drink and go to a park, just stare, just people watch. That's one of my favorite things to do. When it comes to transportation, I would say the TTC is quite good. I know a lot of people complain that it's late, that it's unreliable. And there is some truth to that, but the fact that I can travel anywhere in the city for $3.25 within the span of 2 hours is fantastic. Yes, it can be unreliable. Yes, it's not the best service, but it could be a lot worse. And in the occasion that I'm late to go somewhere or, the TTC is down or something, I can always take an Uber every once in a while. It's really not a big deal. And the thing about Toronto is that it's a walkable city. You can really walk anywhere from east to west. So I'm okay with transportation. That is one thing that gets on a lot of people's nerves, but I'm okay with it. Next up, we have to talk about culture and whether Canadians live up to their reputation of being very nice. I am glad to report that yes, they are. Canadians are in fact very nice people. They are very polite to the point where I have heard some people complain about Canadians' niceness because they misinterpret it for being fake. So just because somebody's polite to you doesn't mean that they are being fake. Toronto is one of the world's major cities, and like every major city in the world, you have to be careful who you open up to, and you have to have some kind of guard up. And if you don't let somebody in instantly, some people from different cultures may perceive that as being fake, but I just see it as being careful. And all of the people that I have met here who did initially have their guards up, they turned out to be some of the nicest people and most generous and kindest people that I've ever met. And I'm happy to report that I've made a very nice small group of friends that I can be vulnerable with and open up to and have a good time with. A lot of people seem to have a hard time making friends here in the city, but I think you just have to give people time to get to know you, to trust you, and once they open up, you're in. Your group is here. There is so much diversity in this country and in Toronto specifically that, whatever kind of group you want to be a part of, you are going to find it. Speaking of diversity, one of the biggest things that I truly appreciate about living in Canada is that not once have I run into an incident of racism. Not once. Everywhere I go, people treat me like I'm Canadian. People assume that I'm Canadian. Nobody asks me, where are you from? When did you immigrate? People might ask me, when did you move to Toronto? Because they assume I moved here from another part of Canada, but nobody will ever ask me, are you Canadian? Or what country are you from? That has never happened. And I think that has made me feel so at home here. I just feel like one of the people, and that's everything I've ever wanted. This is a feeling that I never felt back in Kuwait. And this is not to diss Kuwait, this is just a matter of fact and how I feel. Finally, let's talk about the system. Getting to understand the layout of the city, how the government works, taxes, learning about the different benefits that you get as a citizen and as a resident here. I have personally not taken full advantage of any of these benefits because I don't think I fully understand them yet, but I'm much better now than I was a year ago. It is a little bit confusing, but you eventually get it. And once you get it, life becomes a lot more manageable. It becomes a lot easier. That's what I'm trying to say. Don't be intimidated by the system if you have just landed in Canada or if you're new here. Eventually you're going to get it. You're going to understand how this is all for your benefit and everybody else's benefit. The best part about living in Canada is that I feel completely free to be myself, to live my life in the way that I see fit for me. Having the ability to explore my identity and create a version of myself that I am comfortable with, that I am proud of. And that is, I think, has been the most rewarding part of living in Canada for me. You know, a lot of people will have many complaints about living here, but honestly, like, there are pros and cons to living everywhere. Is Canada perfect? No. But do I love it? From the bottom of my heart. And every day that I am here, I am very, very grateful. I hope this video wasn't too long. I just wanted to talk about my first year in Canada after creating that first video that I did last year when I first got here. I was in a different state of mind. Like, I was super emotional. Yeah, go back and watch that video if you're interested. But thank you so much for watching, and I hope I'll see you very, very soon. I have some updates, so I'll be back.